Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a few really good off-meta, sleeper OP, just underplayed stuff in this patch that should be played more, but isn't. So I've got at least one champion for every single role here that we're going to take a look at in this video. The first one is going to be up in the top lane, and it's going to be Poppy. So Poppy's a pick that we have seen pretty much nothing of over the past few months. Because of recent changes though, because of direct changes to Poppy over the past few patches, because other tanks have been nerfed quite a bit as well over the past few months, it's slowly made Poppy a much better pick in the top lane, and she's actually one of the better tanks that you can play right now in 8.13. Now, usually when you think of Poppy, you think of just a full tank top lane pick who's going to be really beefy come the mid to late game. But what a lot of players are doing right now on their Poppy is they're actually rushing a Trinity Force and playing Poppy as more of a bruiser in the early to mid game. You actually do have a lot of kill pressure in the early game. If you do go for a Sheen Rush and you do rush Trinity Force on Poppy, a lot of pro players are doing this on her in this patch. So I definitely recommend trying it out if you haven't already. So next up here, let's take a look at a jungle pick. This one's going to be Kindred. So Kindred's another champion who's received small little buffs over the past few patches. She got another buff in 8.13, and she is performing a lot better now compared to what she was a few patches ago. Very similar to Poppy, because other jungle picks have just been nerfed slowly over the past few patches, it really opens things up for something like the Kindred pick, especially because she's also been getting buffed. For your setup on Kindred right now, you can either run Press the Attack or Hail of Blades. Press the Attack is still the rune that's doing best on Kindred right now. Hail of Blades isn't too far behind though, so you can try out both. If you just want to run the best page though in this patch, then I would stick to Press the Attack. As for the build for Kindred, you can either go Warrior or you can go Bloodrazor depending on what the enemy team comp looks like. If the enemy team comp is tankier, then Bloodrazor is going to be better. If they're squishier, then Warrior is going to be better in that situation. And then what most players are doing as their second and third items on Kindred in this patch is they're going for a Runaan's and then Infinity Edge, and they're not building Stormrazor on her. So next up here, let's take a look at a mid lane pick, and it's going to be Wukong. Wukong mid is a little bit like the Aurelia mid right now. It doesn't do as good in the top lane into bruiser picks and into tank picks because you don't have as much kill pressure in those lanes. But if you're playing Wukong mid into a squishy mage, then you just have a lot more kill pressure in the laning phase, and especially once you do hit level 6, you're going to be able to all in that squishy champion and burst them out a lot of the time. And then Wukong mid lane is also pretty safe in the laning phase too. You're not really gonna get ganked a ton, and if you do get ganked, then it's pretty easy to escape a gank because of Wukong's W, and because mid lane is a lot shorter than top lane. If you're pushing up Wukong in the top lane, even if you do use your W correctly, a lot of the time you are gonna die and you're not gonna be able to escape the gank. But because mid lane is a lot shorter, if you just back out, use your W, you're gonna be very close to your towers. So unless you're pushed up all the way to the enemy mid laner's tower, it's going to be very hard to gank you in the early game. So next, let's take a look at a support pick. It's going to be Bard, and Bard is a champion that actually does pretty well in the meta. He's a champion that does provide a lot of kill pressure in the laning phase. You do quite a bit of damage with Bard, and right now what a lot of players are starting to run on him in this patch is they're going for a Nashor's Tooth Rush. They're building just damage on Bard, and that is actually having a lot of success on him. Hail of Blades is also something that a lot of players are testing on Bard in this patch. Electrocute is still doing the best, and it is still the one that most players are taking on Bard, but the Hail of Blades synergy there with the Bard's meeps allows him to get a lot of burst damage off really quickly. Once you do collect your chimes and once you do get a bunch of them, you are going to be able to put out a lot of burst damage very quickly there with the Hail of Blades. So next up here, let's take a look at a few AD carry picks. Now these AD carries aren't underrated themselves in this patch. It's more so the setup and the runes that players are running running on these champions right now are a bit underrated. So Jhin with Hail of Blades is actually performing a lot better in this patch. With the Hail of Blades getting buffed 2 patches in a row now, it's actually not a bad option on Jhin. It does allow you to have a nice synergy there with your passive. It does give you quite a bit of extra attack damage, so it's something that you can run on Jhin. Comet and Fleet Footwork are still doing nice on him, so I think it does come down to personal preference, and it also does come down to the lane that you're in. And then for Miss Fortune, Dark Harvest as your keystone is actually performing very well on her in this patch. You can still run Conquer and Comet, those are still great keystones on her, but I've been noticing that a lot of high elo MF players have been running Dark Harvest now in this patch. It does allow for a lot of upfront damage with Miss Fortune. With Miss Fortune, you want to be dealing as much damage as possible with the least amount of auto attacks, because you're just not going to be building a ton of attack speed on her. So you want your first few auto attacks, or you want your auto attacks to hurt as hard as possible, and that's what Dark Harvest allows you to do. So if we head back up to the top lane now, Kennen is a pick that has become a lot more popular right now in the higher elos. He's actually being picked a ton in NA solo queue right now in Challenger, and he's doing a lot better for a few different reasons. So what a lot of players are doing right now on Kennen is they're running Phase Rush, they're also running Nimbus Cloak as well as Celerity. And with those 3 runes, it just allows Kennen to thrive so much inside of teamfights. You're going to be getting a ton of movement speed. You're going to be able to get around in teamfights really well. And if you also do go Spellbinder on Kennen, which a lot of pro players are doing in this patch, and it's doing very well on him, you're just going to be able to do whatever you want in teamfights. You're going to be able to reach the backline very easily, and you're just going to have a ton of success when you do start teamfighting on Kennen. And then Phase Rush in the laning phase just allows Kennen to trade really aggressively. If you get your Phase Rush proc and you also use your E, it's going to be so hard for enemy bruiser champions or enemy tanks to actually get onto you in the laning phase. So it just allows Kennen to trade a lot more aggressively, because even if that bruiser or that tank tries to engage onto Kennen, he's going to get his movement speed proc, he's going to have his E, and he's going to be able to get away and kite out really nicely. So a pick down in the support role that I think is very underrated for this patch is Nautilus. Nautilus for this meta is a pick that can do very well because he provides a ton of kill pressure in the laning phase. His gank assist is some of the best for any support in the game. So if you can call over your jungler for an early gank, if they're playing someone like a Xin Zhao or just a champion that can level 2 gank, then Nautilus has insane setup for that, and you can really look to get a nice snowball going in the early game with Nautilus. He's also a great pick paired up with Yasuo in the bot lane. If you notice that your bot laner wants to play Yasuo, then picking Nautilus is great because at level 6, your all-in is insane. You can activate the knockup for Yasuo with either your Q or your ultimate, and it just provides a really good level 6 all-in. So another AD carry pick here that we're going to take a look at is Quinn, and Quinn in both the top lane and in the bot lane has one of the highest win rates for this patch. There's a few different reasons for it. So the first one is that Quinn actually did not get her base stats nerfed when they did nerf AD carry's base stats, so it does make her a little bit stronger down in the bot lane if you are up against a traditional AD carry pick. She's also one of the only AD carries that does have very good roaming potential and the ability to influence other lanes. Most AD carries, you're just stuck down in the bot lane, or you're just stuck sitting with your support champion and allowing your team to make plays and allowing your team to engage. But with Quinn, you can look for picks with her, you can look to go for roams, you can look to help your team out, which does make her a really good pick for solo queue. Her ability to trade in the laning phase is also really nice. If you run Electrocute on Quinn, it's pretty easy to proc in the early game. You also have your blind there with your Q, so if you can hit that consistently, then you are going to be able to win a lot of trades in the laning phase with Quinn. And then the final pick here to round out the video is going to be another top laner, and it's Garen. So Garen in this patch saw a big spike in play rate because of his new skin that came out. He also saw a spike in win rate, which is very interesting because usually when a champion gets played a lot more, suddenly their win rate ends up going down, but that was not the case for Garen. It actually went up. Now, if you think about a lot of the meta top laners right now, Garen actually does really well into them. Yasuo, Jax, Riven, Aurelia, Garen can do very well against in the laning phase. Now, Garen's build in this patch is actually very similar to Poppy's. Trinity Force Rush on Garen is having a ton of success. It is what most high elo players actually do go on Garen, despite the fact that most lower elo Garens and most like average Garen players, they still do run Black Cleaver. It's not a bad option if you are up against a few tanks or if you're up against an enemy tank top lane champion, but if you're up against a bruiser and the enemy team does not have a ton of armor stacking champions, then Trinity Force Rush on Garen just allows you to have a ton of kill pressure once you pick that up. Garen's also a champion that's not going to take a ton of time to get used to. If you're someone who's looking for a new top laner to pick up, who's got some pretty decent matchups right now in the top lane and isn't going to take you like 50 to 100 games to actually get the hang of, then I would recommend playing Garen top for this patch. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Those were a few different champions as well as a few different setups that are doing very well in this patch, but just not a ton of players are actually using them in 8.13. If you guys did enjoy this video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.